Hello, welcome to Breakfast Central here on News Central Television, your ultimate morning companion where we bring you the best of news, insightful conversations and discussions. Sit back, relax, and welcome to Breakfast Central. A special welcome to our viewers on Go TV. I'm sure you're excited about the magic of News Central TV. Yes, we bring you this every day, every single day of the week. I am Benga Aborowa.
And I am Olive Emodi. 2 days to International Women's Day counting down. And here on Breakfast Central, we are celebrating every of our female viewers in Nigeria, around the world, from wherever you're watching. Men, don't worry. We'll celebrate you after International Women's Day. I think I don't be jealous.
No, we also join in celebrating.
Thank you so much.
Women.
Thank you very much. My name is Olive Emodi. Too many stories to explore today, but of course, one major story that has been in the news is the story of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan versus, in fact, the Senate. If you go to the National Assembly's page, they titled the video there saying Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan versus the Senate. And I don't know if it's Senator Natasha versus the Senate, as opposed to Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan versus the Senate President. Anyway, yesterday at the sitting she of course brought forth a petition trying to get them to ensure that the matter between her and the Senate President is referred to the Ethics and Privileges Committee so that they can have a look and see, investigate and all the necessary things that need to be done to first find out what the true situation is. Then some of the senators then start to share their opinions or standing on what the rules are. Other 40 is what they cited, and in other 40 they had said there that Senator Natasha Akpoti, or a senator who is bringing forth petition, one, should ensure that they're not the ones signing it themselves, and that two, if the matter is sub judice, then there's no way they can discuss it. She, of course, had talked about her own angle, saying that the matter is not sub judice. But away from all that was happening inside the Senate, can you believe that whilst our distinguished senators were senating, allow me to use that word, Nigerians were protesting outside the National Assembly? You would see young Nigerians who, some of them had jobs, some of them had no jobs. They were outside, pro-Akpabio supporters, pro-Natasha supporters. One of the things that we did realize, however, was that some of the people who were protesting had no idea why they were protesting. One of the women who was, a number of them, let me not even say one, a number of the women who were interviewed asking why they were supporting Akpabio. I don't know if you saw the one Benga that said, I don't know, I won't make him the Senate President. I think this is factual. Can we play it? I don't know if we have the audio.
Yes.
What they are saying. I don't know much about the detail of what they're saying. I'm just supporting you because my mind led me.
But you don't know much about what they're saying. Do you support Senator Natasha?
I don't even really know the whole story about it.
You don't know the whole story? So why did you come out here today?
Why I came out here is that they said they would go and support about it.
Well, she's supporting the Senate President because her mind told her to support him. There's another woman who, when interviewed, they asked her, she said she wants Akpabio to be, remain the president. And they said, oh, you're not for Natasha. She said, no, I don't want her. Why? He said, not do me anything, no. But they said, people say she's stubborn, so I don't want her.
It was almost kind of a like atmosphere yesterday in front of the National Assembly. You had the pro-Natasha supporters, and you also had the pro-Senate President supporters, and it was a shouting battle between both camps. And what we observe from looking at the videos is quite a number of them were paid for, but at the end of the day, it was just, let's see who makes the loudest noise. And it's not what happens outside that will determine the fate of both parties.
Absolutely.
It's what the senators decide to do.
And just to remind us again that what this highlights is a core dysfunction in Nigeria's governance where poverty is capitalized.
Very true.
What we see is weaponized poverty. And this happens every time during elections. We see that people who don't even know why they're there, they'll promise them 5,000 naira, promise them how many derica of rice, and then they will come and start protesting or, advocating for people. We'll see it during the election campaign season as well, where people are doing the battle of the numbers, who is filling out stadiums, and people are paying people to show up. Again, it reminds us that poverty would always...
Poverty and unemployment, because if you were gainfully employed, I don't think...
I mean, can we leave our jobs now to go and say we want to go and be...
office hours to go and protest.
But that's not to say that there aren't people who legitimately were protesting because they believe and they support a certain cause. There were, of course, certain people who knew why they were there. But the majority of people there, we saw that a number of them were just sponsored, and it's really sad.
Okay, moving on to other matters in our wake-up conversations. This is good news, and it's an initiative from the minister that has been known in government circles and in Abuja. People call him Star Boy, and I'm talking about the Interior Minister, Olubunmi
FC.
Ojo. Yes, the Star Boy in the Interior Ministry. He has come up with a great initiative and is keeping up with global best practices. This is 2025. You don't need people to be asking you,
no, it's happy weekend. Happy weekend. Yes. Welcome. Safe journey on your travels. Anything for the girls.
So the Minister of Interior has introduced e-gate solutions, and it says you can renew your international passport anywhere in the country. So the e-gate solutions, this is what it does. If you have a Nigerian international passport, you don't have to queue on the ECOWAS or other countries' queue. You just have to tap and go, and it reduces your wait time. It makes for a seamless entry, and it reduces human interaction.
Absolutely.
And it's when you have all those human interaction, that's where they begin to ask, Oga, what do you bring home? It says the era of Oga, what do you bring home is over.
Well, I don't know about that, but it sounds like great news, because the truth is, if we're keeping up with modern best practices around the world, in a number of countries, a number of airports, you don't see even your boarding pass. You already have your boarding pass on your phone from your house. When you get there, you scan your boarding pass and you go through. There's nobody telling you, bring your boarding pass, let's have a look at it. Everything is automated. But let's take a look at this video.
And of course, for our border control, I know you are aware, for those of you that came in not too long ago, you know our e-gate solution is already there. Because when I came on board, I mean, when you go to UK, you get to Heathrow, you see British citizens. When both of you land and whatever, you know, when you get to immigration, they do bye-bye, they pass their e-gate, they go. You have to go and wait. So I just thought that it's something in JFK, anywhere in the world. And I just thought that as a Nigerian, when you get to Nigeria, it's unacceptable for you to be going through the pain that you go through when you're abroad. So there should be something that welcomes you home. And today, our e-gate solution is already up and running. Lagos Airport has been fully deployed. Abuja is fully deployed. So we have our e-gate solution. You tap your passport, we get your biometrics. You go without anybody asking you, what do you bring come? You know, that kind of nonsense that doesn't dignify us as Nigerians. We just have to clear this. They might look like small things, but trust me, these things are key when the ease of doing business and so many things are being evaluated. So we've been able to sort that. And of course, we're also sorting out the process of our SEPAC.
Fantastic initiative there, and you heard it from the Honorable Minister. He says these things, these Oga, which you bring home, they might look like small things, but it does add up, and it does something to our image as a country. There's so many international travel content creators that have come to Nigeria, and it always stands out, this culture of, you know, begging and asking for tips. No one is saying you can't give tips, but you don't force people to give tips. It's almost like extortion and begging. And
the other airports, and the funny thing is, whether we like it or not, you can see that there's a difference when you're in the airport here in Nigeria and when you're in the airport, for example, in London. There's a difference. There's nobody, even like you're using the toilets, you're not feeling guilty.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you're using toilets and somebody's like, auntie, tissue paper, and take tissue. Auntie, you look so nice.
It's too much. It's too much. And we don't even realize that. We understand the economy, okay?
Yes.
But there's something called human dignity. There's a dignity a person has as a living being. You don't just go around. It's almost like a culture, and it never used to be like this.
Right. And just to mention that Olubunmi Tunji has done great work. We've seen there's been an improvement. The airport toilet, I remember going into the airport toilet sometime this year, and I couldn't believe my eyes, because You could see the renovation. It's looking more beautiful.
Okay, that credit goes to the aviation minister.
Yeah, actually, true.
Give
yes, it goes to the
honor
aviation.
to whom honor is due.
Honor to whom honor is due. However, we can see that even with the process, a lot of the processes are changing. But what I want to say is that at the end of the day, the airport is a fundamental reflection of the state of the economy of the people. We can't deny the fact that...
It's like a doormat to a house. If your doormat is dirty, you can imagine what
the inside is looking like. We can paint the airports nice, paint the processes nice. If there is poverty in the country, it will still find a way to reflect. So whilst Olubunmi Tunji-Ejo is doing his part, whilst Festus Keyamo is doing his part, the Nigerian government as a whole needs to ensure that the economy comes back to what it was, or even gets better, so that can be reflected.
And also service. And these guys are frontline. They interface with a lot of travelers. They need to undergo customer service training, how to deal with citizens and also visitors and address them instead of just going around and begging. Olive, you said something about how they welcome people in the UK.
Yes, yes. When you're at the airport and they're like, British citizens this line, all nationals this way, every other national. You're like,
That's even better. In America, Americans have their own English. They call them aliens. Aliens this way, and American citizens this way.
But at the end of the day, we're not going to have that privilege.
Yes, where Nigerians and aliens can come in from the other gate. Okay, moving on. This is a very interesting story, and it's one debate that we'll always have. Lagos reaffirms ban on flogging in schools, upholds cancelling.
And let's call it what they have called it, corporal punishment.
Yes.
And that corporal punishment, interestingly, is what a number of us in our generation were raised with. But now they've reinforced
it. It's bad. I remember when I was on radio, we had this debate about corporal punishment, if it's good or bad. People.
I don't think there's anybody that didn't do that thing in debate.
Spare the child and spoil the child and spare the rod. I went to 2 secondary schools. One corporal punishment was a thing. It was a military school, and then I went to a very civilian school.
And which would you say was the better one for you?
I would say the civilian school, because you don't flog children. They're not animals. They listen. Flogging is for beasts. Even if the child is a baby, you can take away privileges like their PlayStation, their TV time. If they were meant to go to vacation in America, they can go to South Africa. Those kind of...
Wait, guys, is that how your parents raised?
Methods. I mean, look, I turned out very well. So they did a fantastic job.
Because a number of us, gentle parenting is so sweet and cool. Oh, stop it, don't do that. We don't talk back to our elders when our elders are talking. We don't speak loud, we don't shout. It's all cute and sweet. But at the end of the day, I think I get the point where Lagos State government is coming from. If parents want to discipline their children, they should do the discipline at home. But I'm not going to bring my child to your school, and then you return my child home, and I will see marks on my child's back.
And
I will not forget Mrs. Emodi in my secondary school. And she's not my relative. No, she's not my relative. Her name is Mrs. Emodi. And this woman, she was our math teacher. By the time she comes into the class, they gave her a very terrible name. I'm not sure I can call that name on air. She would flog everybody if she comes into the class and people are making her.
Why?
She just liked being that terror.
It's so nice. And these impressions, look at you, almost 50 years later, you still remember her. Sorry for revealing your age on national TV, but it's traumatizing just to drive home that point.
I completely agree that there are other ways to discipline children, and I think that there's also the stage by which for those who are still insistent on corporal punishment, for their children, there's a certain age that the children have grown past this flogging and they become immune to it. In fact, at some point in secondary school, it became a thing where everybody wants to, quote unquote, we call it chest. You want to chest cane. So they'll beat you and then you don't move. And then by the time you come, your friends are hailing you that, you collected 12 strokes of the cane. You are hardened. It's almost like our prison system where it's not reformatory. There's no rehabilitation. Yeah. They just throw you in with 20 other people in a room and you know that, I beg, bad as bad. They're just going to treat us poorly. Olive, these days, the flogging is even more intense because when we're growing up, there was no sports betting. You might have a teacher that is a Chelsea fan, most likely. Or an Arsenal fan. And he has gone to carry go-go and he loses his bets. He would use that anger to flog the hell out of students. So it's not a good thing. And kudos to Lagos State government. Great. And I'm glad that it's also innovative and forward-thinking. And I'm glad that this has been instituted so that it covers not just the teachers, but the students. Because I remember in secondary school, I had a student beat me. She was a class ahead of me. She was a senior. and she flogged me to all strokes of the cane because I did not bring food from her refectory, from the refectory. So, I mean, so many horror tales that we have. But
thank God we don't look like what we've been through.
Thank God, do. But you watching, parents and students, tell us your thoughts about corporal punishment. Do you think that it forms a fundamental part of ensuring discipline in Nigerian schools? Let us know your thoughts. You can tweet at us individually or at News Central TV. But now, let's share what's happening this morning on Breakfast Central. Lagos speakership tussle. Has democracy been upheld? We'll be having Funso Doherty joining us to talk about the story. Akpabio denies harassment claims as Akpoti petitions. They were standing on Order 40. The arguments were going back and forth, and we'll discuss this in detail. Still talking about Akpoti and Akpabio. Supporters demand interrogation. There's been protests as well. Senate dismisses Akpoti's harassment petition as invalid. What the next steps are, we'll find out. And Benga will bring you what Olive will bring you what Nigerians are saying. Stay with us this morning on Breakfast Central.
Hello, welcome to Breakfast Headlines in News Central Television. I am Benga Borowa. We begin the news in Rivers State, where the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, RSIEC, has fixed 9th of August for the conduct of a fresh local government election in the state. This follows the Supreme Court's nullification of the October 2024 election on the grounds that the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission failed to comply with electoral guidelines. Representatives of political parties at a stakeholders meeting said they are pleased with the 5-month grace announced by the Rivers State Electoral Commission, noting that it will avail them the needed time for preparations. Political actors and observers, however, appeal to the electoral umpire to ensure due diligence is followed this time around. We head to Abuja, the nation's capital, where the controversy surrounding allegations of sexual harassment against Senate President Godswill Akpabio took a new turn on Wednesday as Akpabio publicly denied the claims, while his accuser, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, formally submitted a petition on the matter. The development unfolded as the Senate resumed plenary after a week-long recess. During the proceedings, Akpabio dismissed the allegations, stating that he has never harassed any woman. He urged Nigerians to allow the legal process to take its due course and avoid drawing premature conclusions. The senator representing Kogi Central has tendered a sexual harassment petition against Senate President Godswill Akpabio on the floor of the upper legislative chamber. Rising under Order 40 of the Senate rules, Akpoti-Uduaghan said she had made some comments on national television bordering on alleged sexual harassment by Senate President Godswill Akpabio and had decided to table the same as a petition before the Senate. Akpabio asked the senator to proceed with the submission of a petition, which he did. The Senate President has, however, denied the allegations.
The issue before us today is the issue of an alleged misconduct of one of our distinguished senators on the floor of the Senate. And there are rules that guide such conduct and such behavior. It is not subject to any court outside this committee. And so we do not actually pay more.
The dust may not have settled yet after the speakership tussle in the Lagos State House of Assembly, which disrupted what many have termed the dramatic emergence of the first woman as speaker. Incidentally, coincidentally, it's happening in the month where we're celebrating women. The return of the ousted speaker, Right Honorable Mudashiru Obasa, amidst the glaring dissatisfaction and pain on the faces of the lawmakers, has brought to the fore the issue of whether true democracy exists in Nigeria.
Despite democracy happen.
My dear and gallant honorable colleagues, this is a notice of resignation as Speaker of the 10th Assembly. Once again, history beckoned on me to make personal sacrifice towards resolving the stemming, implacable leadership crisis rocking this assembly of patriots. I come from the illustrious Lawal Akapo family of Lagos. My family has played and shall continue to play defining roles in entrenching democracy, good governance, and the development of our people. I will never depart from the well-established path of honor, dignity, integrity, and the service as personified by my late father.
Despite the resignations and the reorganizing that happened at the Lagos State House of Assembly on Monday, the resignation of Right Honorable Mojisola Meranda seems to have hit the bone marrow of political stalwarts who have questioned if truly democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people, or if it is a government of a few, by a few, and for the few. Join us this morning to look at the speakership tussle and its impact on politics and democracy, perceived as a member of the PDP and 2023 gubernatorial candidate Funso Doherty. A warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have
Now,
you.
we've all witnessed the happenings in the Lagos State House Assembly. Some have likened it to a Nollywood drama. Earlier this year, we saw the Speaker, Obasa, was removed. And 2 weeks ago, and just last week, he came back. He was removed by an overwhelming majority. Is this democracy in action or blatant case of power manipulation? What do you think happened behind closed doors?
Well, I describe these developments really as demonstrating that what we have appears to be a government by proxy. And what I mean in saying that is that those who are in office are not really those in power, right? So there are those that we see, and but there are those behind them who are unelected. We don't know all of them. It's a small group, and they control those who are in office. It negates, in many ways, the principles of democracy, because if you think about democracy, it developed from monarchies and those kinds of systems. And the idea is that democracy gives people a voice, right, in their government. And the main forum where they have that voice is in the House of Assembly, the legislative body. And so it's particularly troubling when we see this, this capture of the legislative body and the voice of the people that we've seen in the Assembly. So I think it has serious implications. It has far-reaching implications, actually. And one of them, I'll just mention one of them, is that when you see this kind of development, it is associated with extractive societies rather than inclusive societies, because what then happens is that you have a small group who are the privileged group who capture the resources of the society, they extract the resources of the society, and therefore you do not have an inclusive environment to foster broad-based growth.
All right. You found this very uncomfortable, and then you've put out a statement on the recent leadership crisis in the Lagos State House of Assembly.
Yeah.
In that letter, you addressed different categories. You addressed first the members of the Lagos State House of Assembly. You addressed Honorable Mojisola Meranda. You addressed the APC leadership and its unelected GAC, and you also addressed your fellow Lagosians. Let's start with the members of the Lagos State House of Assembly. You did say in the letter there, you said you are each elected to represent the voice of the people of Lagos in government. By the office you occupy, Lagosians clothe you with the authority and charge you with responsibility to represent their interests with integrity and courage. Let's talk about the role that the House of Assembly members played in this whole debacle.
Yeah.
From the initial removal of Obasa to electing Mojisola Meranda, and now celebrating the return of Obasa.
Yeah.
What is the role of the Lagos State House of Assembly members in this whole debacle?
Well, I characterize their role as unfortunate, to be honest. I think they started off in a good direction. From what we see on the outside, collectively, overwhelmingly, by an overwhelming majority, they chose to remove the speaker, the previous speaker, and they gave reasons why they did that. And they were at pains to do that. They did it decisively. They were very vocal in what they did. And so we, who they are representing, that's our voice.
And there was even a vote of confidence in the new speaker.
And then subsequently a vote of confidence in the new speaker and all that. So that's the voice of the people. Now, it is now apparent that that has been overruled by forces behind the scenes. And what that means is that, you know, the desires and the wishes of that group has been placed above, you know, the sovereignty of the people.
Who might these forces behind the scenes be?
Well, I mean, so there's the party leadership, and there's this GAC, which we talked about, which is an organ. I don't know if it's a formal organ of the APC, but it's supposedly an organ of the APC. Not a constitutional body, not an elected body, but it seems to wield tremendous influence in the APC structure, and that is problematic. I think that the fact that the House of Assembly, the legislators could not hold their own and had to back down is unfortunate on the one hand, but also it sends a message that, you know, going forward, what should we expect? What do we expect to be the things that will be driving them? What will they stand for? Whose interests will they be advancing? And do we really have representation in this government? And I think the answer is really no.
Now, Mr. Doherty, APC supporters would argue and say, you know, this is sophistication. I mean, that it's a sophisticated way of handling grievances, that they are a party and their members have internal mechanisms of dealing with issues like this. And if you look at it, no law was broken. You could look at the moral side of it and say, you know, things are not really okay. But they will say, look, no laws are broken. We haven't done anything wrong. You should actually celebrate us, because in other states, this could have degenerated into violence and unrest. Is there anything here worth celebrating?
I think there is nothing worth celebrating. You see, you cannot foment a crisis and then say that, you know, celebrate us for resolving a crisis that we fomented. There's no need for a crisis. The people have made their decision. Just leave them be with their decision. There will be no crisis. So you can't insist that they reverse their decision and then say, okay, if they don't back down, there's going to be a crisis, and so commend me, you know, for making them back down. It's asinine. We will not accept that. So I think that you know, if we are clear-eyed in how we approach this, if we are clear-eyed in how we look at it, this is not evidence of sophistication. This is evidence of a capture of the democratic process, and you know, it's reflective of an institutional environment, you know, within that political structure that is hegemonic, right? It's monolithic, and it's not accepting of diversity of views.
All right, I want us to talk about the second angle of your, second part of your letter addressed to Mojisola Meranda. I was saying earlier in my introduction that it's unfortunate that we're having this conversation in International Women's Month, where this would have been a landmark celebration, the first female speaker in the Lagos State House of Assembly. Unfortunately, her tenure lasted just 7 weeks. What role do you think she has played in all of this? Could she have done anything different? Did she really have a say in what's happened so far?
So, you know, it's a bit complex, but simple in a way. So, Honorable Meranda was basically in a crucible, right? And this is something that leaders face from time to time. And, you know, the judgments or the choices that a leader makes when you are in the crucible, when you are in a storm, you know, is a defining, that's what defines you. So we understand that she was under tremendous pressure. We know that. Personally, I believe she should have stood firm. I think she may have underestimated the support and the way Lagosians stood with her outside of that immediate party structure. We as Lagosians certainly stood by her. And I think that she would not have lacked support had she insisted that she would not back down. And if the reps who appointed her want to remove her, let them remove her.
Do you think she was?
I think that this idea that that this argument that is made about representation and Lagos West, and I think is disingenuous. Yorubas have something we call awawi, and I think that that's what this is. This is just we're just looking for something to justify an action, because you are saying that a group is disenfranchised, which represents a third by senatorial district, right? But there's no woman in this structure that you're talking about. So you are disenfranchising one group by enfranchising another group. And women are maybe about half of the population, if not more.
Like minus 1 plus 1.
Yeah. So to me, it's not an argument.
Do you think she was a placeholder in a bigger political game?
You mean as part of this whole debacle?
Maybe not knowingly.
Maybe not knowingly, but I mean that's what she has been made to be now, right? I'm sure that's not what her colleagues intended when they put her forward, because remember, she was the deputy speaker.
Yeah.
So it's not as if she didn't have some leadership sort of stature. She was advanced as speaker when the Speaker Obasa was removed. So I mean, it's turned out now that she's become almost like a victim of the process. But I would argue that while recognizing the tremendous pressures that she was under, I would argue that there were other courses of action that were open to her, and I don't think as a leader she took full advantage of them.
Now let's look at the people, the Lagosians, 20 million plus of them. You talk about a captured House of Assembly. Now, given the dominance of a single party that we've seen in Lagos, what does this mean for legislative independence? Is it even possible for the people to have their say in the affairs of Lagos State? Because what this episode has shown is, you don't have a say in all of this. You might vote in elections every 4 years, but you really don't have a say, and that's a danger for our democracy.
It is a danger for a democracy. Anywhere where you have, where you have a very narrow span of control, it's a danger, and it is anti-democratic in a sense. And the dominance operates on multiple levels. So you have the dominance of the space by the APC. And we can argue about what is the extent of that dominance and so on. But, they've been pretty much at the helm of affairs for almost, 27 years now. But even within the APC, which is maybe even the more problematic part of it, there is dominance within the APC. There's a dominant power block within the APC. And in particular, I think the president is far too powerful in the context of the APC machinery. So when you think about it, the level of control is just tremendous. And what that means...
You think the president is still interested in the happenings in Lagos? He's busy with national security issues, with dealing with the economy in Abuja. Do you think he has a part to play in what is... He's not been governor for almost 8 years now.
Well, anybody who lives in Lagos, and has lived in Lagos, I think, for the past 20 years, knows the tremendous power that the president wields within the APC structure, right? And it may not just only be the president, be a small group around the president, but it's a power block. That's a monolithic power block that controls things. And so when legislators, 36 legislators representing Lagosians across the state, make a decision, and that is overruled, right? It tells you that, there's a high concentration of power sitting somewhere else, right? Now, what does this mean for the people? I think that people have to question and ask the question that, when they go out there and they exercise their mandate and their franchise to vote, what are they voting for? The institution and the platforms that the people are coming on. What is the nature of those platforms? If you elect, what this tells me is that if you elect a legislator on the platform of the APC, You are basically electing a proxy whose decisions can easily be overruled by a bloc, and therefore this will reveal the essential nature of that institution, and then it's back to the electorate to now take a step back, and as they plan the exercise of their mandate looking forward in subsequent elections, one of the things they must take into consideration is that this candidate that I'm voting, either as senator, either as governor, either as legislator, is that person going to be a governor who is in office only, or is he going to be a governor who is in office and in power? And that is a decision that people will have to make. So am I voting somebody who is going to take the decisions, who I trust to take the decisions, or am I voting somebody who represents some other forces?
I want to go back to what you had said earlier when we were talking about the concentration of the powers of the president in Lagos.
Yeah.
You had also made reference to the GAC and
Yeah.
talked about how, I'm not quite sure, so I want you to clarify. Do you think that the GAC is behind what has happened? Do you think that the president is behind what has happened? Is that what you're inferring?
So I think that clearly the GAC, by all that's been reported, I'm not obviously a member of the APC, so I'm not privy to their internal workings. But based on what has been represented, it's clear that the GAC played a role in this process, and even some of the comments made by the leadership of the GAC that were reported in the press indicate as much. It's also been indicated variously that perhaps this speaker, the speaker who has come back, enjoys the support of the president. I suspect, as we all do, that the return of the speaker could not have happened without the consent, at a minimum, the consent of the president.
So what could be the bigger picture at play here? Because, like we mentioned, they had valid reasons for removing him in the first place. What could be the bigger political picture that maybe the rest of us are missing as to why all of this is happening?
So, there may be political considerations in terms of the role that someone like Obasa might occupy within their political structure now, not the government structure. And so there's a concern, there might be a concern that, that monolithic structure, the sustenance of themselves in power and so on, is threatened, if an enemy is made of Obasa. This is one possible explanation. Like I said, I'm not a member of the APC. So if that's the calculation, then you may say, okay, well, if this will be a threat to our political dominance and to our maintaining and sustaining ourselves in power, then maybe we'll sacrifice the will of the people to accomplish this, as a short-term measure and so on and so forth. Now, that may be a political calculation that is made, but it doesn't change the nature of what has transpired. It doesn't change the outcome and the effect and how people will perceive it. And it's not going to come without cost. And I think the cost will be significant. By the time, we're mid-cycle now, by the time the next election rolls around, I think we will see some of the costs of what appears right now. It seems as if, a problem has been solved and so on and so forth. But really, there are a couple of losers.
Will the people remember in 2 years' time when we have elections?
It's our job to remind them.
Looking at
It's our job to remind them as opposition
and talking
politicians.
about the opposition party and opposition politicians in Lagos, I'd like to come in here. We've had the dominance of one party in different forms since 1999. Some will argue that the reason why the APC in Lagos gets away with all of this is because of a lack of a viable opposition. Just a few days ago, the former gubernatorial candidate of your party, Dr. Adediran, threw in the towel. He said internal wranglings in the PDP, Jandor, and all of that. Now, what is your party, the PDP, doing to break this hegemony that you've described in Lagos State, or are you waiting for 2027 before at the polls before you take action? I know you're very active in writing about issues. You've talked about the Lagos Calabar, you've gone to court, and so many issues like that. And people will say, you know, this is a sophisticated way of running opposition, that Nigerians want somebody that will make noise, they want a grassroots politician, that you're too much of a gentleman. How do you respond to that?
Well, the fact that you're seeing things in the public space does not mean that there's not stuff going on the grassroots. So, but you may not see what's going on the grassroots. So that's the first thing. The second is that, to say that there is no opposition, I think is not true. I mean,
we've had a party win elections consistently since 1999.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that people have not contested against them. It doesn't mean that they have won all the votes. I mean, some of the elections have been closer than other elections. But yes, it is true that they have remained. And part of the reason how they remained is by using every opportunity to consolidate their power base, using the resources of the state and all of that, which this is part of what we're seeing. But I would say that even if you look at the last election, you will see that this so-called, and by the way, the margins by which they have won every election has been declining. The number of votes has been declining. And Lagos State in the last election had maybe about 15% turnout. It tells you that, it's not a popular victory. You see what I mean? So, and there's a lot going on. And I think that you should stay tuned, because the trend that we started observing, which we saw a lot of it in the last election, we will see much more of that as we get into 2027. Let me touch very briefly on the comment you made about, the PDP and the previous gubernatorial candidate leaving, and some of the comments he made about. What you have to remember is that when people take actions like this, and when they write things about the actions they are taking, there's a reality, but there's also the perception that they want to paint. And you have to realize that those two things may not be the same, right? People make statements to reflect, the perception they want to create. Could there be are there internal squabbles within the party and so on? I think there's no political party that doesn't have internal squabbles.
He specifically said Bode George, through his support behind the Labour Party, and has now been made the chairman of the disciplinary committee. So he doesn't see why he should still stay in a party where the a chieftain in the party doesn't believe in him, doesn't have faith in him.
Well, I think that may be that is something that he, as an individual candidate, will have to assess. You also have to ask the question, was Bode George acting alone? Did he enjoy the support of the larger party? You cannot force support, in a sense, right? If people lose confidence in you, and I'm speaking generally, if people lose confidence in you, they've lost confidence in you. As a candidate, you can be a divisive candidate. You can be a divisive candidate and create those conditions that you complain about. Do you see what I mean? So I think that we have to assess it in all its dimensions, right? And not just on the basis of what one person says.
So from what you see, do you think that the party has lost faith in or confidence in Jandor, and will you be replacing Jandor?
Well, what I would say ultimately is the party that determines who its gubernatorial candidate will be when the next election comes around. But
do you have ambitions?
I have no, there's no reason why I will not pursue a gubernatorial ambition, right? There's no reason why. So when the next election rolls around, I likely will be in the game, and ultimately the party will make that decision. I will say that, the things he complained about, do I see them as obstacles or whatever? I'm not perturbed, no. I think that the platform of the party remains strong. I think he may not have enjoyed the support of the party, and there are many reasons why. But you cannot force people, and
give us an insight into why you think he may not have enjoyed the support of the party.
No, it's from his statement, it's part of what he has said. It's part of what he has said.
Yeah, he said he didn't get, but you said there are many reasons why he didn't support.
I said there might be many reasons why that is. You can't point to one thing and say this is why He did not. If he did not enjoy the support, he did not enjoy the support. It's
So
the reality. Do you see what I mean?
Okay. But so what we're concluding in essence is you'll be glad to replace Jandor.
Well, I will be, if the party chooses to have me as their candidate, I will accept it with all alacrity.
All right.
Now, you took the federal government to court last year, mid last year, on the Lagos-Calabar superhighway. You talked about lack of environmental assessment, and also the bidding process wasn't transparent enough. What's the latest with that case? How's it going?
I think it's going well. We've had a couple of court dates, and actually the case is coming up for substantive. All the motions and counter motions and affidavits and so on have been filed, and so it's coming up for substantive hearing. I think on the 18th or 19th of this month, so which is in another week and a half or so. And following that, we'll adjourn for judgment. So I think we're making progress.
Well, APC supporters say, look, this is a monumental project. It's going to bring a lot of investment and open up that corridor. That why are you going against? It's an anti-progressive move by filing that court case in the first place.
In the first place, and this is the first thing, and I have said this, I'm on record on this, in writing, actually. I'm not opposed to the coastal road. I'm opposed to the process for awarding the coastal road. And, the coastal road decision is a decision that is taken by, the leadership, the government, executive council, and so on. And there are benefits. Whether the benefits outweigh the cost, whether there are other projects that could be more beneficial, those are issues that can be debated. And that's not my contention. My contention is that having decided you want to do this project, the process is critical. You cannot award within a short time of coming to government. When there's tremendous hardship on the people, the country is in terrible debt, the people are suffering. You now award a contract for just the first part, 2.5 trillion, without competitive bidding, to a single contractor who is known to be associated with the leadership of the government. You just cannot do that. And, the implications and the reason why I've chosen to take a stand on this is that this goes to the heart of a problem of underdevelopment in Nigeria, right? Because at the end of the day, this is what fuels people doing the wrong projects.
Culture of impunity.
The culture of impunity. Will spend money on the wrong things, or even if we spend them on the right things, we don't get value for money. We spend 10 naira for 1 naira worth of value. And this is why, after 30 years, you keep asking the question, why have we not progressed? Why have we not progressed? It is serial decisions like this. So this is something on which, because it is such a big project, it is so visible, the facts are in the public domain, it is important to take a stand and make an example of it. And
right.
Maybe through this, we will fix that culture of impunity and people will start following the laws.
All right. Okay, now my final question would be your concern regarding political parties and the influence that they wield in Nigeria's politics. Jandor wouldn't be the first person to leave the PDP for the AP. Well, we don't know if he's going to the APC yet, but the speculations are, many people are starting to speculate, and many people say, oh, he might be the APC. And why the APC is coming up? It's because we're starting to see a number of people in most recent times moving to the APC. APC has had a huge influence, for example, in Lagos State, which is, where your constituency is at. Do you think that the PDP will have all that it takes to be able to change the narrative by the next election? And do you worry about Nigeria becoming a one-party state?
So, I mean, there are concerns that, we're moving in the direction of consolidation as opposed to, a multifarious kind of scenario. But this notion of some people defecting, I mean, there are some people that have defected to APC, there are some people that have defected from APC to other parties. But if you see more of a trend of people defecting to APC, it's not something that surprises me so much because, you see that in our climb, right? Because people want to identify with the ruling party. So
glory hunters.
We tend to see that, and sometimes the goodies are flowing from the ruling party, and so people align. We've always seen that, and it's a way of thinking about how do you assess those people subsequently. So I think we'll see that, but I think that that process will not go unchecked. We have a role to play as opposition. I think, my joining the PDP last year should be interpreted in a way as a signal. I think, and I think that people should just stay tuned. The opposition is not sleeping. We are working, and I think this is something where you work for 4 years, and then you see the result of your work
Okay.
at the end of 4 years. So
very well said.
So let's just stay tuned. Let's just stay tuned.
All right. Funso Doherty, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure speaking with you.
Yes, certainly always a pleasure to have you. And if you're just joining us, thank you very much for joining us. You've missed one conversation, but of course, we have more to come. But now let's take you to the latest story, the controversy over an allegation of sexual harassment leveled against the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has continued to escalate, with Akpabio publicly dismissing the claims, despite Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, the lawmaker from Kogi Central Senatorial District, formally submitting a petition on the matter on the floor of the Senate. Now, the latest development unfolded as lawmakers resumed plenary after a week-long recess, setting the stage for intense deliberations. News Central's National Assembly correspondent, Sagir Ibrahim, brings us more in this report.
As plenary resumes, lawmakers return to the chamber after a week-long recess, with anticipation high over the latest developments. Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan arrives accompanied by her husband and supporters amid heightened attention on the unfolding dispute. Opening the day's session, the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, dismissed the allegations, urging Nigerians to allow the legal process take its course without bias or speculation.
Attempt any sexual harassment on the said distinguished Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan or any other woman for that matter. I urge all Nigerians, particularly the media, and then, of course, the members of the social media, to await the court's decision. And please do not jump to conclusions.
Immediately after Akpabio's remarks, Akpoti-Uduaghan rises from her new seat to invoke Senate Order 40, formally submitting a petition accusing the Senate President of sexual harassment and abuse of office.
Sexual harassment, abuse of office, and malicious obstruction of my legislative functions. I have decided to narrow these statements in a formal petition against the President of this Senate.
Sub-4 of Rule 40 states that no senator may present to the Senate a petition signed by himself or herself.
Earlier, a group of Akpoti-Uduaghan supporters gathered outside the National Assembly, demanding that Akpabio steps aside for an independent investigation into the allegations. Security operatives dispersed the protesters, denying them access to the National Assembly complex. Meanwhile, in a separate development, the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions commenced investigation into Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan's conduct, despite a court injunction barring it from doing so. The committee declares her petition dead on arrival.
The petition she presented today is actually dead on arrival. And I say that because it runs contrary to Order 40, subsection 4, that no senator may present to the Senate a petition signed by him or herself.
During Senate plenary, senators are at liberty to debate, to speak, to voice their opinions, and there is immunity. That is why what we say on the floor of the Senate, no outsider can come and say, I sue you.
It has been a day characterized by protest, ex parte orders and petitions, which the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions is claiming to be dead on arrival. It had vowed to continue with its investigation, citing the immunity clause, which it claims covers all senators during plenary. It had, however, gone into an executive session upon which it is expected to continue with its investigation on the 6th of March, being Thursday. In Abuja for News Central, I'm Sagir Ibrahim.
You're welcome back to Breakfast Central here on News Central Television. It's time for us to bring you the newspaper front pages. Remember, we like to keep things interactive here, so you could call in to contribute your quota to our discussion. We'll start off with the what newspaper are we looking at this morning? We'll start off with the Daily Independent newspaper. Let's look at the headline there.
All right. Okay, I think we're beginning with the Daily Trust. So on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, the big story there, alleged sexual harassment. Senate dismisses Natasha's petition against Akpabio. Funtua battles T.Y. Danjuma, others over 9 mobile. Security beefed up at hotel where ex-CG Paradang was found dead. Hippo attacks Gombe farmers keep vigil on farms. That's the story there. And the bottom of the paper, after Supreme Court judgment, Rivers to hold fresh local government polls August 9th. Dismissed immigration officer nabbed over attempt to sell arms to bandits. Woman accused of killing co-wife in Bauchi. Subscription hike, commission sues MultiChoice. And if you look at the pictures there, you can see the protesters. Akpabio must go on the one hand. Akpabio treated Natasha as a daughter and friend on the other hand.
Okay.
United Nations for Good call on Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan to apologize to the Senate President and Nigerian women. So you can see the both sides of the divide. People who don't have problem, you know, in this life. Yes. We'll come back to talk about it. But let's share with you the next newspaper.
Okay, looking at the Daily Independent, I guess is the biggest news in the country. It's about the happenings in the Nigerian Senate. At no time will I ever harass any woman, Akpabio declares. Excuse me, sir, but there's a lady called Joy Nunia. She's the former NDDC boss, and she said you harassed her and she gave you a dirty slap. It's on record. The writer says, denies sexual harassment allegation, petition Senate. Upper Chamber promises Akpoti-Uduaghan fair hearing. Natasha Akpabio supporters clash at National Assembly. Northern Elders Forum asks Senate President to step aside. Natasha shuns Committee on Ethics and Privileges, Public Petitions in court. Halts Senate disciplinary action against Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. That's from the Daily Independent. You know, that rider just gives you everything from all the gist you need to know about this issue. We're building sustainable, globally competitive economy, says Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And the Federal Executive Council okays 10.3 billion naira for HIV and AIDS, HPP, drugs, diabetes test kits. Good one there.
Especially since the USAID saga.
Exactly. I mean, if Trump says America first, we also have to put Nigeria first
Very
and look
important.
after our own. Very
All right.
important.
Let's look at one more paper. Let's look at the next newspaper, first newspaper. On the front page of the first newspaper, Senate in crisis. Akpabio cleared as Natasha's petition dumped.
Cleared by
Akpabio
who?
cleared. How?
Great minds think alike and dress alike.
I know. Tear gas, court injunctions, political power play, shake National Assembly. FCCPC sues MultiChoice for ignoring directive against price hike. Honestly, because I was trying to renew and I saw that what I used to pay 15,000 for has entered 19,000. Federal government eyes 7,000 megawatts power generation with tariff increase. Diri says, we are building a new Yenagua. Yes, please. Yes to that. Yenagua would always be a place that feels like home for me as well. Mercy Chinwo sues very dark man for defamation, demands 1.1 billion naira damages.
These days, people aren't even suing in little
millions.
sums. It's
No,
billions.
no.
Do
If
you
our
know how
politicians are
much?
stealing billions, let
Do you
everybody.
know how much Mrs. Akpabio sued?
250 billion.
Billion.
Billion. Lo fair we. Alleged 400 million naira fraud. Court postpones Andy Uba's arraignment. Udom Emmanuel was never detained by EFCC lawyer clarifies. Bandits abduct, kill Catholic priest in Kaduna. It's sad that this is still going on.
Udom Emmanuel was invited. He wasn't detained.
Yeah, he was never detained. And the final story, Rivers on edge, Assembly versus Fubara in high-stakes power shutdown. Multiple 48-hour ultimatums, legal battles, a state on the brink. Tomorrow is tomorrow. The CTC judgment will touch Fubara's hand tomorrow, and then we'll know what the next steps are.
I guess yesterday said even if you are trekking from Abuja, you should have reached Port Harcourt with a certified true copy of the judgment by now. But we'll see what happens.
We'll see what will happen. Let's go back to the issue in the Senate between Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio. A lot happened yesterday during plenary, and we did see a number of protesters. Like you saw on the front page of the first paper that we took, you saw that there were those that were pro-Akpabio supporters and those that were pro-Senator Natasha and Senator Natasha supporters, Senator Akpabio supporters. Now, the interesting thing is if you asked these people why they were protesting, you will be shocked at some of the responses you get. Let's take a look at this video.
Shocking.
Why are you supporting Senator Akpabio?
Why I'm supporting you?
Yes.
Why I'm supporting you? I didn't see any wrong in what they are saying. So I don't know much about the detail of what they are saying. I'm just supporting you because my mind led me to support you.
But you don't know much about what they're saying. Do you support Senator Natasha?
I don't even really know the whole story about it.
You don't know the whole story. So why did you come out here today?
Why I came out today is that they said we should go and support Akpabio. Why he's a good man.
So you want him to win the position?
Yes.
He's already Senate President.
Okay.
But why are you supporting Senator Natasha?
No.
Why?
No, I don't want her.
You don't want her what?
He not do me anything, but I don't want. Because there are people say them be stubborn people. So we will not need stubborn people. We want peace.
Wow. That's what they told her.
They don't even brief them.
That's what they told her.
If you want to pay people to come and protest for you and you want to gather numbers, at least do your due diligence. Carry people that can speak and say the thing.
The money would be higher now. If you're giving these people 5K, if you want a university graduate, they'll properly articulate
like 20K
their points.
per head.
Like 20K.
When they have billions, they will get billions from the court case.
Point.
You should have had these people trained, you know, do like an overnight session, tell them if they ask you this is what you say. Tell them don't talk to anybody.
It's almost
don't
like
talk to press.
Protests are not organic anymore. Like people,
Yeah.
I mean, there are genuine people that are there that come out to protest on their own convictions, but the overwhelming majority are just...
I believe that we also have a video of
crowd,
somebody on the Senator Natasha Akpoti's side who was asked, you know, why she was supporting Senator Natasha. And if we do have that video, we would like to please ask. Okay, we'll try to bring that before the end of the show to let you know exactly what the situation is. But then again, like we said at the start of the show, it reveals a state of the Nigerian people, a state of poverty, poverty that has been weaponized in the favor of politicians and those at the helm of affairs.
And there are dangers to this. I mean, this is laughable. It's civil. No harm is done. They conducted themselves peacefully, even though there are scenes of Nigerian police shooting tear gas to disperse some of those protesters. But there's also the other angle of security implications for Nigeria. If you have such a huge number of unemployed Nigerians, that could be easily used for, like they say, the devil's mind. The idle mind is the devil's playground.
Right. We'll talk much later as well about the supporters of Senator Natasha.
All of these protesters, would it in any case influence, let's say, the court judgment or the disciplinary committee, or it's a perception
it's
thing?
It's a battle exactly. It's a perception thing. It's a battle of influence. For the longest time, Senator Godswill Akpabio didn't speak about it. He didn't talk to Nigerians about it. The first time he spoke about it,
spoke to us yesterday and said, how do you want him to comment on
something that
issues very trivial? So why did he go ahead a few hours later?
Exactly. So because they realized that the story is starting to get in started to gain momentum. Social media is picking up. The media is picking up.
So he had to address it a few moments later. Okay, I believe we have that video of the pro-Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan supporter at the protest.
We are demanding for an independent body to investigate these allegations as raised by Senator Natasha, because what I saw with Senator Natasha, like I had said earlier, is not a reaction. It is an outburst. And for somebody to have an outburst, you must have suppressed that thing for a long time for it to burst out. So Natasha busted out. We call for an independent investigation. And while it is going on, sir, please let the Senate President step aside so that they can allow a proper investigation to be conducted.
We don't want intimidation. Women should be encouraged. Women should be supported. You have Margaret Thatcher. You have all these women all over the world doing well. Why should they suppress our own women here? Is the Senate for a man? They should be gender sensitive. Without a woman, you can't live any life. So we are tired of the intimidation from this man. Another woman from NNDC has accused the same man before. So it is not good for the integrity of the Nigerian Senate.
Our demand first is for Senator Akpabio to stop harassing our sister. She should allow her to exercise her rights. She should allow her to enjoy her privileges. As a representative of the people, you are not dealing with Senator Natasha Akpoti as an individual. You are dealing with the good people of Kogi Central, even the bad people. You are dealing with the witch, the ugly, the good of Kogi Central, because she represents all of us.
Interesting views there. I mean, it's just, you can see the contrast of both sides. So, I mean, like they say, a picture paints 1,000 words, and a video does more than that.
And I think that why Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan's case is getting a lot more steam, apart from the fact that we only have 4 women in the Senate. We also, I mean, we have been talking about representation of women in politics. The affirmative action has been a conversation for the longest time, and even more importantly, it's International Women's Month. So one of the things that women kick against would be abuse of office, intimidation, bullying, and sexual harassment in the workplace. And these are some of the issues that have been highlighted. Even worse is the statement by Senator Florence Itagiwa.
And to make it clear to Nigerian men, because a lot of them misunderstand these things, when you say International Women's Month, or when you talk about giving women equal places to thrive and not to be sexually harassed and molested, you're not saying you should be given special treatment. You're saying give us a level playing ground, like the men. No one is asking for favors, and no one is saying if a woman has committed an offense, she shouldn't be disciplined. It's just do not project patriarchy and subjugate our women. Okay.
Sisterhood is very proud of you.
Brotherhood is proud of you.
Thank you very much. We'll go on a very quick break, and when we come back, more conversations this morning. Stay tuned.
The Nigerian Senate has dismissed Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan's petition against Senate President Godswill Akpabio, citing procedural invalidity. Yesterday's Senate sitting was marked by intense debate as Akpoti-Uduaghan attempted to present a petition alleging sexual harassment. However, the Senate ruled that the petition was invalid since it was personally signed by her, contravening Senate rules.
The Senate Chief Whip emphasized the importance of adhering to rules, warning that deviating from them could lead to chaos. Despite Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan's arguments, the Senate upheld the rule. The dismissal has sparked mixed reactions amongst senators. Now, here's what we think you should know. The Senate's decision highlights the importance of following procedural rules, even in sensitive cases like this. The dismissal of the petition may not be the end of the matter, as Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan may explore other channels to pursue her allegations.
The petition is in my name against the President of the Nigerian Senate, His Excellency Senator Godswill Akpabio, for sexual harassment, abuse of office, and malicious obstruction of my legislative functions. You may recall, sir, that on Friday in Arise TV, I did make some statements. And I have decided to narrow these statements in a formal petition against the President of this Senate. So if it may please you, I would humbly step forward and lay this petition. Thank you.
You may proceed. While I am aware that the matters are in court, however, I would like to state clearly that at no time did I ever attempt any sexual harassment on the said distinguished Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan or any other woman for that matter. I and my siblings were raised very well by my late single mother. She died in year 2000, through very difficult times, and I therefore have the highest regards for women. I also wish to state that I also have 4 beautiful daughters.
Well, these are the happenings, that took place at the Senate. But to help us make sense of it all, we're joined by our guest, Abdul Mahmood, lawyer and public affairs analyst. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Order 40 was the core of the conversation yesterday, as some of the objections raised were that, 1, it's sub judice, and 2, she signed the petition herself. She clarified the fact that it's not sub judice, as it's a different matter that is before the court. And now the issue is that she signed it herself. Are these rules strictly binding, or is this maybe some measure of mischief to avoid investigation being carried out?
Well, I'll approach your question one of 2 ways. One, procedurally, and 2, at the level of the substantive rules. But let me deal with the latter first. I've not seen that specific rule book of the Senate that has become a significant part of this whole saga. More specifically, Order 40. If Order 40 is couched in a permissive way, or it uses the word may, Uduaghan is allowed, to bring his petition before the Senate. But if Order 40, is couched in a mandatory way, that he uses the word shall, it becomes procedurally mandatory for Senator Akpoti to follow the procedures outlined by the rules of the Senate. But we are dealing with a sensitive matter here that is also criminal in nature. If I were Senator Akpoti, with the door shut against her by the leadership of the Senate, more particularly by a house that I described, or a chamber that I described as a boys' club, I will approach 2 institutions. 1, the Nigerian Police Force. 2, the ICPC. Why do I say this? Sexual harassment is a criminal offense. If you look at Section 46 of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015, it deals with the whole business of sexual harassment. It talks about, conducts that are of sexual nature that tend to harass, intimidate, bully, or create fear in a work environment. The police, under Section 24 of the Police Act, can look at her petition. 2, she can also proceed and submit her petition before the ICPC. But let me express my shock here. The police and the ICPC do not have to wait for a petition to activate its powers. Why do I say this? 4 years ago, when a professor harassed a graduate student at Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, I think the professor is serving jail or has finished serving his jail term. The action taken by the ICPs was on the basis of what it read in our national papers. No petition was written to ICPC. So I'm surprised both institutions have not taken steps to call the parties, before them, to look at what is at play, which area of the law has been infringed upon here. Again, it deals with unequal power. It deals with a strangulatory patriarchal society, where structures of power are always, at the advantage of men. That's my prefatory remarks.
Now, Abdul Mahmoud, you've raised several issues here, and like you rightly said, I mean, if you just look at the numbers, it's a boys' club, 109 senators out of 109, only 4 are women. Now, let's look at the power play and the power factor here. The Senate Disciplinary Committee says it only acts on referrals from the Senate, but in a system where the accuser is also the most powerful man in the chamber, can we really trust this process? And also, Akpabio is Senate President. How much of his influence will tilt the scales of justice? Do you think the ICPC, even though they know what they should do, and the Nigerian police would actually have the temerity to bring forth an investigation against the third most powerful citizen in the Federal Republic of Nigeria?
Well, nobody is more powerful than the Constitution. Nobody is more powerful than the nation state. But unfortunately, we're dealing with a patriarchal society where structures of power are always the advantage of men. But the question you've asked, I want to answer it in one of two ways as well. One, if I were the Senate President, the proper thing I would have done to protect the moral character of the boys' club, of the Senate, and of the nation state, I would have stepped aside to allow for independent arbiter, which of course here is the Deputy Senate President, to oversee the proceedings. He has done that for reasons obvious to him. I do not know why. Two, the Ethics and Public Petitions Committee of the Senate, has also been implicated by this saga. The chairman of the committee, a senator from Edo South, Neda Emaswe, had made reckless remarks, in the course of this whole saga, that it implicates its own position. It does not show that he's an impartial arbiter in the whole saga. So it goes to the root of the matter that they will have a boys' club intent on protecting, the moral character of the boys' club itself. A boys' club that is playing to the whistle, of its captain. But my worry, and this is the danger I point out all the time, the way members of the Senate are behaving, they are notably, destroying whatever is left, of the image, of the brand, of the reputation, so to speak, of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You are right, we are dealing with the third citizen of our country, but it's no more powerful than our nation state. It's no more powerful than the Constitution that is sworn to protect. A serious allegation that is criminal in nature has been levied against them. What I expect the Nigerian police to do, this procedural police, is to send its men to the National Assembly or invite both parties.
But they have some level of immunity. Doesn't the Senate President have immunity against criminal?
He doesn't have immunity.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
His immunity only exists around the precinct of the National Assembly. Under the legislative powers, legislative houses privileges, Privileges Act. He's only protected, to the extent that whatever he says within the precinct of the National Assembly cannot be held against them. But he does not have immunity. Don't forget, we have an electable way of doing things. This is a man, who has so many petitions against him on the basis of what he did in Akwa Ibom State. To protect himself in the most powerful way, as we know it in Nigeria, he sought and he got the position of the Senate of the President, the President of the Senate of Nigeria. So we have a way of creating immunity for ourselves. I'm surprised. This is another issue entirely. His successor in office is presently before the EFCC. I hear he has had 2 nights in the EFCC. I'm surprised why the predecessor of the successor is not before the EFCC. So we're dealing with powerful individuals here who appear to be more powerful than the nation state. And that is the danger that we'll continue to deal with every day of our life. But unfortunately for the Senate president, he has met a very doughty lady, a doughty fighter, who is ready to go to the hall, with him on this specific issue. But like I always say, evidence is important here. Natasha has an evidence. It's only important that the institution of state, the ethics committee of the Senate, should allow her, to explicate on her petition and present evidence before it. If it does not allow her, we also have institutions like ICPC and Nigerian Police Force under their acts, to act and do justice to a matter that is fundamental to the moral health, of our state. This is the first time in a very long while that we have a high elected public servant accusing another public servant of sexual peccadillos. And so it behoves institutions of Nigerian state to look at this issue. The closest we had was in 1969 when a poor driver accused the secretary of the Benue state government at the time, Andrew Obeya, of having sexual relationship with his wife. There's a distinction here where we're dealing with 2 unequal powers. One at the level of the Obeya or Bande case of 1969, a poor driver against secretary of a state government, and in 2025, we are dealing with 2 senators who are not equal, I must stress, because the patriarchal structure is always in existence, to the extent that it gives credence, it pursues those advantages that men enjoy in society. That is why I think there's this distinction between the 1969 Obande Obeya case and the now Akpabio Natasha sexual harassment saga.
Right, and I'm really glad you made reference to, when you were speaking earlier, the statement made by the chairman of the Ethics Committee when he did say that the petition was dead on arrival. Many have said that based on the fact that a party cannot be a judge in its own course, that Senator Godswill Akpabio should step aside pending the investigation. Unfortunately, it looks like there might not be any investigation happening with the Senate unless maybe there is a representation of this petition. So what are the options that are available to Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan? And do you think that Senator Godswill Akpabio should step aside like they are asking?
2 individuals must step aside. Senator Neda Maswa. And there's a Latin principle in a Latin axiom, a maxim in law, nemo judicium casasua. A man cannot be a judge in his own case. The Senate president has an allegation against her. He presides over the proceedings of the Senate. He protects the moral health of the Senate. This allegation is against him. So he cannot sit and judge a matter that relates to him at one level. 2, Senator Neda has had his position as chairman of the Ethics Committee implicated by some of the reckless statements he has made. He cannot be an impartial arbiter in the hearing of any petition presented before his committee. So the solution here, I think the matter has resolved itself. Just yesterday morning, before the Buhari burst out, in the Senate of National Assembly, an interim order, an ex-parte order was issued by a court in Abuja, stopping the Senate or its committee to look at all the issues that are before the Ethics Committee. The proper thing that the Senate should do, as an institution of the rule of law, of order, it should submit itself to the jurisdiction and adjudication of the court. That is at that level. Don't forget the issue before the court and the issue before the Ethics Committee deal with what happened last Monday in the Senate when Senator Natasha refused to take, to take up a new seat, Then there's the criminal matter of sexual harassment on the basis of Section 46. And I also have to throw Section 360, I think, of the Criminal Code, which deals with sexual harassment. If you look at some of the testimonies, some of the positions of Natasha that are already in the public space, these harassments took place in Uyo in Akwa Ibom State. And if it is true that this harassment took place in Uyo, the reach of the criminal code, can also be used by the police to look, to look at the matter. But if it took place in Abuja, Section 46 of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, an act that covers only the Federal Capital Territory, can also be used by the police to adjudicate, investigate the matter, and where there's evidence that sexual harassment are taking place, can proceed and file charges against the President of the Senate. But will the police get involved in this matter? Will the ICPC step in? I do not think so. If you look at the nature and character of our nation state, bullish, largely patriarchal, these institutions will be interested in protecting, the Senate President. No more, no less.
Okay. Now, Abdul Mahmood, just before we go, you wrote a piece on Senator Itagiwa's comments about the affairs, what's going on in the National Assembly and the Senator Natasha versus Senator Akpabio debacle. Now, what precedents does this set for women in politics if we have a former senator, a woman herself, and we also have Senator Ireti Kingibe in the Senate? Women, you talk about patriarchy, but we have women that don't seem to support their own. Senator Itagiwa said, when you become a senator, you've passed the level of sexual harassment. How do you react to statements such as that?
I'm pretty much concerned about the personal opinions of former senators Abiodun Olujimi, Florence Itagiwa, and a currently serving senator, Senator Ireti Kingibe. They have the rights to express themselves. But in expressing themselves, they should not distort truth. In expressing themselves, they should not turn what we know in the literature as issues that fundamentally touch on the woman as a gender, biological gender, and a social construct at a certain level, turn what we know on its head. You just re-echoed what Itagiwa told Arise Television, a sister station, a few days ago. It is not intellectually correct. In fact, it is flawed for anybody of Itagiwa's caliber to pose or frame the issue the way she did. The fact that Senator Natasha is a senator, Natasha is a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, does not shut the door or the window, of sexual harassment against her. That you become the president of Nigeria as a woman does not mean that the patriarchal structures of society cannot be used to intimidate you, cannot be used to humiliate you. And that is where I think that the remarks of Senator Itagiwa were flawed in the extreme. And I keep saying this, there is a problem with the elites of our country. And because they are ignorant, because they refuse to read, what they spew in the public space, end up becoming rubbish and extreme bunkum. Nobody in the caliber of Senator Itagiwa should express himself or herself the way she did. The issue here is sexual harassment. All we have to ask is the nature of the sexual harassment. Sexual harassment can be in the way of the feely, touching, flirtatious relationship maintained to create, with women in the workplace. It could be an attempt
All right, sir.
You know, a woman.
We'll have to interject at this point because we need to quickly take what Nigerians are saying before we wrap up, because Nigerians are definitely reacting to this story as well. Abdul Mahmood, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central.
Thank you.
Right, thank you for having me. Have a nice day.
Thank you. And now let's quickly share with you what Nigerians are saying about the said matter, because of course there are reactions on social media. And Nigerians have definitely been reacting to the debacle between Senator Godswill Akpabio, the Senate President, and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. The recent update regarding the hearing yesterday at the plenary at the Senate and how her petition was not being heard because of two reasons. One, they said the matter was sub judice, and secondly, they said that she didn't get someone else to sign it, she signed it herself. She did clarify that the matter isn't sub judice because she hasn't brought it before any court, but the petition was still kicked out. But enough of all that. You understand all that's been going on. Let's quickly share with you what Nigerians have been saying about it. The first tweet is from Maurice Moye, and in his reaction to this, he says, Akpabio is not having it easy. Nigerians in Abuja are protesting in support of Natasha. Also, International Women's Day is few days from now. Pamela Adie also has a tweet about this. Why is Akpabio? Oiza says, why is that? All right, let's take the tweet from Pamela Adie. She said, just the fact that she, Senator Natasha Akpoti, stood up on national TV to lay a formal petition of sexual harassment, etc., against the Senate President of Nigeria, Godswill Akpabio, is unprecedented in Nigeria. We are witnessing a moment in history, regardless of what the outcome might be, an uncommon woman. And then Oiza in the next tweet says, why is Akpabio presiding over a case that he is the accused? If they explain Nigeria to you and you understand, you are a Nigerian. Somto Onuchukwu says, Senator Akpabio should not listen to his sycophant colleagues in the Senate who are trying to stop the sexual harassment petition. He should remember it is his name and reputation of the Nigerian Senate on the line, not theirs. He should step aside and allow this to be investigated. Babashola Kuti says, this is why Akpabio was very calm while gleefully accepting her petition. He knows his boys' club will never go against him. He does not quite understand or fully appreciate what is coming. This will be fun. This is, of course, reacting to all the people who are speaking and citing under 40. Daniel Rega says, Nigerians who are out there protesting over the Natasha Akpabio story probably did nothing when there was a price hike in petroleum products, foodstuff, and the cost of living generally. No outrage over the hike in data prices, unemployment, or insecurity. Imagine fighting for Nigerian politicians. Something is fundamentally wrong with us as a people. The next tweet from Hikia Tor says, the poverty in the land is real. Just share salt and the crowd will sing your praise, even without understanding the matter. You saw it in the videos earlier. The case of Akpabio and Natasha supporters in Abuja is a complete show of shame. We have a long way to go because politicians have taken advantage of stomach infrastructure to capture gullible Nigerians. And the final tweet, this one says, nothing concerns me. I have no business, no business with Natasha or Akpabio. What I have problems with is the prices of things lately. They're on the high side. There's no food to eat. People are suffering in silence, but come online to laugh at some random jokes. Something needs to be done ASAP. Pablo, don't talk in, you know. And Nigerians have shared what they're saying regarding this. That's all. You can also share what you're saying regarding this. I think, Benga, your final thoughts on this whole saga and how you see it playing out. Do you think it's going to fizzle out in a few days?
I mean, like Port Harcourt, like Lagos, like Abuja, and this is a very serious matter. And it seems like we have fights between power blocks, but it's good for posterity's sake that the Senate does the right thing. She has, and the Senate President gets a chance to clear his name, be transparent about the investigation, do the right thing, and let's move on to.
And I think that for all the people who are advocating for this, I think what you should be advocating for is for an investigation to occur, regardless of what side of the divide you are on. If you are supporting Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, the best thing to ask for is for an investigation to maybe, corroborate her story. And if you are supporting Senator Godswill Akpabio, you should also demand an investigation to clear his name, regardless of what side of the divide you're on. What is not acceptable is people that are coming and saying, oh, this person should not talk about it. That everybody has a right to say what they want to say. And if she has evidence, she can, of course, tender the evidence for the investigation or before a court of competent jurisdiction. But We will continue to follow up with this story on social media as well as here on television. Thank you for joining us. And to our GoTV viewers, you're very welcome. News Central is now showing live on GoTV channel 23 and DSTV channel 422. We'll be out of here. There's, of course, other shows that are coming right after now. We have the news at 9, and then we, of course, have Jasiri at 10. But we will be back again same time tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Olive Emodi.
And I'm Benga Boro. I'll see you tomorrow.